We often shape ourselves around the people around us to be accepted, loved, and validated. But at some point, that mask becomes a burden, an invisible prison that keeps us from living authentically. Jung believed that psychological suffering doesn't arise by chance, but from the disconnection with our true self. Every time we ignore our emotions, silence our intuition, or insist on staying in situations that drain our energy, we are silently hurting ourselves. But why do we do this? The answer lies in the unconscious. Since childhood, we've learned to associate love and acceptance with meeting certain expectations. If at some point in your life you realize that being your true self led to rejection, criticism, or abandonment, then your unconscious registered a dangerous message. To be accepted, I must suppress myself. This belief infiltrates every area of life, influencing relationships, decisions, and even how we see our own worth. Maybe you felt trapped in a cycle of toxic relationships, constantly sacrificing yourself for others in hopes that, in return, you'll finally be seen and loved. But instead of receiving genuine love, what you find is emotional exhaustion, frustration, and an ever-deepening emptiness. That happens because true love can never flourish where there is self-abandonment. Jung warned us about a crucial phenomenon: psychological projection. We often seek in others what we deny or repress in ourselves. If you constantly find yourself attracted to people who don't value you, who are cold, distant, or even abusive, it's possible that your unconscious is trying to show you something you haven't yet wanted to see. You're not choosing yourself. The unconscious communicates symbolically. It doesn't shout or force. It whispers through the experiences we go through. If you notice recurring patterns in your life, in relationships, in missed opportunities, or even in your self-esteem, understand that this isn't bad luck or destiny, but rather a message your unconscious is trying to send. Something inside you needs to be integrated, healed, and understood. But how do we break this cycle? How do we stop hurting ourselves and finally choose ourselves? The first step is awareness. Jung said that nothing changes until it becomes conscious. As long as you stay on autopilot, believing the problem is always outside of you, you will keep recreating the same painful experiences. But the moment you become conscious of the patterns that have kept you imprisoned, you regain the power of choice. Maybe right now you're thinking, if it were easy, I would have already changed. And that's a natural reaction. The fear of change is one of the most powerful forces in the human psyche. We cling to what's familiar, even when it hurts, because the unknown scares us. But this is where Jung's concept of individuation becomes essential. Individuation is the process through which we become truly ourselves, free from external impositions and unconscious projections. But for that process to happen, we must face what Jung called the shadow. The shadow represents everything we repress or deny in ourselves because it doesn't fit the image we want to project to the world. And the more we deny our shadow, the more it controls us. That's why so many people are trapped in destructive relationships, jobs they hate, or lives that don't reflect who they truly are. They are being ruled by unconscious parts of themselves. But here's the key. When you stop fighting your shadow and begin to integrate it, you set yourself free. To integrate the shadow means to recognize the parts of you that you've hidden out of fear of others' judgment. Maybe you've learned to always be kind, agreeable, and helpful, even when it hurts you. Maybe you've suppressed your anger, your authenticity, or your freedom to fit into a mold that was never truly yours. But all of this still lives inside you, waiting to be acknowledged. When you start choosing yourself, you will inevitably face resistance. The people around you may feel uncomfortable because they were used to the version of you who always gave in, who always prioritized others over herself. But here's something Jung taught us. There is no growth without discomfort. The unconscious works through symbols and patterns. If you've been through situations where you felt small, undervalued, or invisible, maybe it's time to ask yourself, at what point in my life did I learn that I'm not enough? That answer may not come immediately, but when you begin asking that question sincerely, you'll realize it all began much earlier than you thought. Choosing yourself is an act of courage. It requires a deep commitment to truth and a willingness to let go of everything that no longer resonates with your soul. It may mean the end of certain relationships, a change in career, or even a period of solitude. But that solitude is not empty, it is fertile. It is in that space that you rebuild your identity, not based on others' expectations, but on what truly makes your soul vibrate. Transformation begins when you stop asking, "What do others want from me?" and start asking, "What does my soul desire?" When you make that shift, everything around you begins to change. You become magnetic to what aligns with your truth. People who never valued you start to drift away, and those who truly resonate with your essence begin to appear. The universe responds to authenticity, but for that to happen, you must be willing to let go of the illusion. The illusion that being accepted by others is more important than accepting yourself. The illusion that if you try hard enough, you'll finally be loved. The illusion that fitting into external expectations will bring happiness. Freedom begins when you realize you don't have to prove anything to anyone. You are already enough exactly as you are. Jung teaches us that life is not about chasing happiness through external factors, but about finding meaning and purpose. And that meaning can only be discovered when we stop hurting ourselves and choose to live according to our inner truth. So now, I invite you to pause for a moment and ask yourself, what are you holding onto in your life that no longer resonates with who you truly are? What patterns have you been repeating that keep leading you back to the same pain? What stories have you been telling yourself to justify the fear of change? The answers to these questions may be the first step toward the greatest transformation of your life. And remember, choosing yourself is not selfish. Choosing yourself is an act of self-love. When you begin to choose yourself, something extraordinary happens. You realize that you've always had the power to shape your own reality. Carl Jung showed us that the outer world is a reflection of our inner world. What we experience, the people we meet, and the challenges we face are projections of our own psyche. So if you've been living in patterns of pain, rejection, or abandonment, it's because there's something inside you that needs healing. But healing doesn't mean just thinking positively or ignoring difficult emotions. True healing comes from facing what we most avoid. It means looking inward and asking, what is this pain trying to teach me? If you've been in relationships where you constantly feel undervalued, it might be because, on some level, you still haven't recognized your own worth. Jung said that what we deny within ourselves doesn't disappear, it simply manifests in other forms. If you ignore your need for self-love, that absence may reflect in relationships that reinforce your low self-esteem. If you repress your anger, it may surface as anxiety or even physical illness. If you avoid your loneliness, you may end up in superficial connections that only deepen the emptiness you feel. That's why choosing yourself is not just a symbolic act. It's a deep process of inner transformation. It means you're willing to break the patterns that have kept you stuck, even if it means going through the discomfort of change. And change requires courage. Maybe you're afraid of losing people around you, afraid of not being understood, afraid of failing when trying something new. But here is one of Jung's greatest teachings. Fear is a guide. Whenever we feel intense fear towards something, it's because there's a portal for our growth there. Fear shows us exactly where our comfort zone lies, and, at the same time, where our next step toward evolution is. So choosing yourself means facing that fear head-on. It means saying no to what weakens you, even if it displeases others. It means stopping the search for external validation and beginning to find strength within. It means letting go of relationships that don't honor your essence, even if that brings temporary loneliness. And above all, it means stopping the self-inflicted pain. Often, we don't even realize we're hurting ourselves because we've gotten used to the pain. We've gotten used to expecting little from others, to accepting emotional crumbs, to settling for less than we deserve. We've become accustomed to chaos because it feels familiar. But familiar doesn't mean right. Jung teaches us that true transformation happens when we become conscious of these patterns and decide to break them. That doesn't mean the process will be quick or easy. On the contrary, there will be moments of doubt, moments when you'll want to go back to your old version simply because it feels safer. But every time you resist the urge to return to what hurts you, you become stronger. Individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, doesn't happen all at once. It happens in the small moments of everyday life. It happens when you choose to respect yourself instead of pleasing others. It happens when you take a step away from what diminishes you It happens when you begin to build a life based on what really matters to you. And little by little, the world around you starts to change. The right people begin to appear. Unexpected opportunities arise. Your energy is renewed. Because when you choose yourself, the universe responds. That's synchronicity, an essential concept in Jungian psychology. When you're aligned with yourself, everything around you aligns too. Not because it's magic or coincidence, but because your inner energy creates your outer reality. So the question that remains is, are you ready to choose yourself? Are you ready to step out of the cycle of pain and build a new story for yourself? Are you ready to let go of what hurts you and open space for something new? If so, then know this. This journey is not about being perfect, nor about having all the answers. It's about having the courage to take the first step, even without knowing exactly where it will lead. And that first step can be now. Take a deep breath. Feel your body, your mind, your soul, and ask yourself, what do I truly want? The answer is already within you. You just need the courage to hear it. You might feel the answer within you, perhaps as a soft whisper, an intuition that has always been there but was drowned out by fear, doubt, or the external voices telling you what you should be. Carl Jung said that the greatest challenge of the individuation journey is precisely this, distinguishing the voice of your soul from the noise of the outside world. And that distinction can only happen in silence. We live in a world that teaches us to run away from ourselves. We're constantly busy, distracted, consuming information, seeking approval, numbing ourselves with momentary pleasures just to avoid facing what truly needs to be seen. But deep down, we know that this constant escape comes at a cost. The cost is disconnection from our essence. What would happen if, for just a moment, you stopped, took a deep breath, and simply allowed yourself to feel? What if you looked within with honesty and asked yourself, what within me still needs to be healed? The answer may not be easy to hear. Maybe you'll realize you spent years molding yourself to meet others' expectations. That you set aside your dreams to live a life that was never truly yours. Maybe you'll realize you're still carrying wounds from the past, unresolved pain that influences every decision you make. Maybe you'll realize you're afraid to choose yourself, because deep down you never believed you were worthy of doing so. But Jung teaches us something powerful. Healing only happens when we have the courage to face the truth. The truth that you do deserve more. The truth that you don't need to beg for love, attention, or recognition. The truth that your soul already knows the way. You just need the courage to follow it. And following that path means letting go of the illusions that have kept you stuck. The illusion that you need to be perfect to be loved. The illusion that suffering is required to prove your worth. The illusion that if you just keep trying, keep pleasing, people will finally see your true self. But the truth is, you don't need to be seen or recognized by anyone but yourself. When you choose yourself, when you respect yourself, when you stop accepting less than you deserve, you become magnetic to everything aligned with your soul. The relationships that once caused pain begin to lose their grip. The doubts that once tormented you begin to fade. And a new world begins to open before you. That world won't be perfect. It will still come with challenges, with moments of uncertainty. But now, the difference is, you will be in control of your life. You'll no longer be a prisoner of others' expectations. No longer a hostage to cycles of pain and self-sabotage. You'll be free. And being free doesn't mean being alone. Quite the opposite. It means being surrounded by people who truly see you, who respect you, who support you in your journey. Because when you choose yourself, the universe responds by placing beside you those who vibrate on the same frequency. But it all begins with one decision. The decision to stop hurting yourself. The decision to choose yourself. The decision to finally become who you were born to be. And no one can make that decision for you. So, the question is, are you ready to take that step? Because the moment is now. If you've made it this far, it's because something inside you already knows. It's time to change. Something within you already feels that you can't keep living on autopilot, repeating the same patterns, carrying the weight of expectations that were never yours. Jung said, "He who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakens." What does that mean? It means that as long as we keep searching for answers outside, in relationships, in status, in success or validation, we will keep feeling incomplete. But when we have the courage to look within, we discover that all the answers were always there. Society teaches us to look for happiness outside ourselves. From a young age, we're told we need to be accepted, that we must achieve something to be valued, that we must prove our worth to the world. But Jung shows us that our true worth already exists inside us. The problem is that worth is often buried under layers of fear, guilt, trauma, and conditioning. And that's why choosing yourself isn't simple. Choosing yourself means confronting the parts of you that were forgotten, repressed, or ignored. It means facing the pain you tried to bury. It means embracing your shadow, not as something bad, but as an essential part of who you are. Your shadow isn't your enemy. Your shadow is everything you once had to hide to be accepted. Your unspoken desires, your invalidated emotions, your authenticity suffocated by fear of judgment. But Jung teaches that when we have the courage to face our shadow, it stops controlling us. So look within now. What parts of you have been rejected? What dreams did you abandon, afraid you weren't good enough? How many times have you hurt yourself just to please someone else? Self-knowledge isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. Without it, you'll keep repeating the same cycles, attracting the same kinds of people, feeling the same frustration, because you're still acting unconsciously. But when you become conscious of who you truly are, everything changes. You stop accepting emotional scraps. You stop feeling inferior. You stop fearing loneliness, because you finally understand that solitude is not punishment. It's a sacred space of reconnection with yourself. And from that reconnection, you begin to build a life that makes sense to you. The right people begin to appear. The right opportunities begin to arise. Not because the world around you changed, but because you changed. And that is the great truth Jung wanted us to understand. The outer world is just a reflection of what exists within us. If you want a better life, look within, and start by changing your own energy. If you want a healthy relationship, learn to love yourself first. If you want success, discover what truly motivates you, instead of following a path imposed by others. If you want peace, stop running from your truth, because everything you seek is already inside you. And now, the only question that remains is, are you ready to awaken? To awaken means to let go of the illusions that have kept you trapped for so long. It means seeing clearly the choices that brought you here, and accepting that you always had the power to change your story. But change only happens when you stop deceiving yourself, when you stop hiding behind excuses, and finally take responsibility for your life. Jung said, "What you resist, persists." In other words, everything you try to avoid, deny, or suppress only grows stronger in your unconscious and ends up manifesting in other forms: toxic relationships, feelings of emptiness, emotional breakdowns that seem to come out of nowhere. But the truth is, nothing comes out of nowhere. Your unconscious is always communicating with you. The problem is, we often choose not to listen. So now I ask you, what within you is asking to be heard? Maybe it's that sadness you try to ignore, but always returns when you're alone. Maybe it's that desire to change your life, that you keep suffocating out of fear of the unknown. Maybe it's that inner voice, your intuition, that always warns you when something doesn't feel right, but you keep silencing it. To choose yourself means to listen to these inner voices and finally give them the space they deserve. It means recognizing that you are not just the parts you show the world. You are also your doubts, your fears, your repressed desires, and all of that needs to be embraced, not denied. According to Jung, individuation is the process of integrating all parts of your being, both light and shadow, because only when you fully accept yourself can you truly live with authenticity. And living authentically is one of the most courageous acts there is, because it means you'll no longer mold yourself to fit into other people's expectations. It means you'll no longer settle for less than you deserve. It means you'll stop pretending to be someone you're not, just to be accepted. And not everyone will like this new version of you. Some people will drift away. Some relationships will fall apart. Because when you change, your world changes too. But those who truly belong on your path will remain. Because they weren't there for who you pretended to be, but for who you truly are. And that is the greatest gift you can give yourself. The freedom to be who you really are, without fear, without guilt, without needing anyone's approval. So, once again, I ask you, are you ready for that freedom? Choosing yourself isn't a destination. It's a continuous process. There's no exact moment when you wake up and realize you've become the best version of yourself. As Jung taught, individuation is a never-ending journey, a constant unraveling of who you are, a deepening into your most authentic self. And along this journey, there will be days of doubt. There will be moments when you'll want to return to old patterns that feel safer, more familiar. But the safety that comes from conformity is not real freedom. True freedom is invisible. It's when you choose to respect yourself, even when it's hard. When you walk away from relationships that harm you, even when it hurts. When you say no to what doesn't align with your soul, even when everyone expects you to say yes. Because the only life truly worth living is the one that reflects who you really are. And when you make that choice, something magical happens. You become a magnet for what resonates with your essence. People begin to see you differently. Opportunities begin to appear. Your energy transforms. Because when you choose yourself, the universe responds. And now I invite you to take that step. If this message touched your soul, if you felt that these words spoke directly to you, then this video is for you. There are so many people still trapped in the cycle of pain, of self-sabotage, of disconnection from their true selves. Together, we can spread this message and help more people awaken. Leave a comment below and tell me which part of this message resonated most with you. What decision do you feel called to make to finally choose yourself? Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future content. And above all, remember this: you have the power to change your life. The decision is yours. The moment is now. And I'm here to remind you, you have never been alone on this journey. I'll see you in the next video.